One of the questions that I get asked a lot is, how do I make sure that my show notes are optimized? Now, this could be coming from someone that is a podcaster and they have show notes on their website, or they just do episode descriptions in their podcast hosting provider, or even someone that wants to optimize their video descriptions on YouTube. We can categorize all of these under show notes, and that's really what we're going to talk about here today. I want to show you how I make sure that everything is optimized so whoever is watching, listening, checking out my website can make sure that they are getting the right information at just the right time, and they are able to take that next step, whatever it may be. So let's get right to it. Hey y'all, Crystal here today, and like I said, we are talking about how to make sure that the show notes that you are creating are optimized. Now, I often get questions about, well, what do you consider show notes? And what I always boil it down to is the thing that's going to add the above and beyond value to my audience. So show notes could be considered the little blurbs, the descriptions that you see whenever you listen to a podcast episode, or the video description that you see underneath a YouTube video, or these could be individual blog posts that you see on someone's website. These can all fall under the category of show notes, but at the end of the day, what I really want you thinking about is, what is the goal of my show notes? Because my goal typically is to, one, offer a ton of value to my audience that they know I'm going to over-deliver on the content that I'm creating. But two, it's also a place for me to make that ask of what I want my audience to do next, right? This is my call to action area where I can say, hey, here's our free Facebook group. Make sure you go check it out. Or here's how you can connect with me on Instagram. Or this is a free resource that I have to offer. Or this is my paid program that I want you to check out. There's a lot of different calls to action. I'm going to link to some other resources that we have on calls to action you can make in your content. But I think it's really important that you, as the creator, understand what your goal is in having these show notes, because people will often come to me, like this happens all the time. Someone will come to me and say, gosh, Crystal, I just don't know how much longer I can do my podcast, or I feel a little burned out creating a lot of YouTube content. How can I make things easier? And then whenever I ask them, well, what's really the thing? Like, what is the big pressure point, that one thing that it has you like, oh, I hate it. Every time I do it, I hate it and it drives me crazy. It's usually show notes. It really is. I get this all the time. People are like, I hate doing show notes for my podcast. I hate doing video descriptions for YouTube. I don't know which information to put in there, what's important, what's not important. And I'm actually going to show you behind the scenes of what I put in these three different places. I'm going to show you my podcast descriptions, video descriptions on YouTube, as well as my podcast show notes that live on my website, because there are different things that I put in each place. And I think that they all serve a different purpose and they're all very important. So let's go to the computer and I'm going to show you all the places where I think that you should be optimizing your show notes. So the first place I wanted us to explore is within my podcast episodes. Now, what I'm showing you here is we are in BuzzSprout. This is my podcast hosting provider. You can check it out by going to crystalprofit.com/Buzzsprout. I'm a proud partner and an affiliate with them. I've been using BuzzSprout since day one of my podcast journey. And I want to show you what this looks like once a podcast episode is complete and it's published. And I want to also show you what it looks like where you can manipulate this information. So what it is down here where you see the description, this information right here is what you will see in Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Good Pods, wherever you're listening to a podcast. This is the information that will pop up. And do you notice how I don't have a ton of links? There's not a lot of different things that are there, because when someone is listening to a podcast, that's what they came there for. They didn't come to go to 17 different places, to follow you on Instagram, check out what you're doing on Pinterest and see what your LinkedIn page looks like. They're there to listen to your podcast. So when people come to me and they say, well, why don't you have all of your links in your episode description on your podcast? And I'm like, well, because that's what my show notes are for. And if you watch this video right here, you will have learned all the reasons why I call this my episode description, and show notes, what I'm going to show you here in a second, live on my website. That serves a totally different purpose. So what I have here, and let me go into this different view. Okay, so now you can see that the information I had highlighted is everything in the episode description. And again, I don't have a ton of links. I don't have anything there because here's the thing. Here, and lean in for a second. If you've never heard me say this before, I always tell people to think about when they go to listen to a podcast episode. What do you do? What do you typically do? I want you to actually think about this. Tell me in the comments if I'm right on this, all right? I will open up my podcast app and I will see that there are new episodes. And what I typically do is I look at the title of the episode to see, is that something I want to listen to today or hear about? And I'll also look to see who is the guest of that episode. And I can find that in the title or in the description of the episodes. Now, what I'm not looking for is someone's Instagram handle or how to find them on YouTube or how to get their free resource, because I don't care about that yet. I haven't been convinced yet that I want the thing that they have in their episode description. Now, I'm not saying that you can't put the links to your freebies and all these other places, but I think it's important that you understand as a consumer, most people don't read episode descriptions anyway. Oh, is that something that I should say out loud? I don't even know if I should, but I write my episode descriptions the way that I do because this information right here is what you will see me post on social media. Secret's out. This is my secret to podcast marketing. The episode description that I write here, yes, while I need something to put for an episode description, that's actually what I use to post and promote my stuff on social media. So when I say optimize your episode description, I'm saying what is going to entice someone to actually click on this episode and listen to the whole thing. Because if someone says, oh, how to save time and money creating content, maybe they're excited about that. Maybe they want to know more about it, but maybe it's the description where it's oh, I really want to know about this. This is specifically what she's talking about. Sure, I'll go listen to that. But then I make the calls to action in the actual audio file in my podcast episode is when I say, make sure that you're following me on Instagram, and I'll have a link in the show notes, not the description, in the show notes for how you can connect with me. So if I mention something in the audio file, that will live in my show notes, which is a different place we're going to talk about here in a second, but that's on my website. So you see what I'm saying? This is how I optimize everything. But let's go back to, so you have the episode description. Because I use BuzzSprout and I'm able to have little brand mentions over here, I always have a small affiliate link, whether it's something related to that individual episode or I just kind of default to BuzzSprout, and I continuously make money with my BuzzSprout affiliate link because it's something that I mention a lot. So yeah, just something to consider. So now let's go to YouTube. We're going to switch things up for a second. And I want to go to YouTube because that is slightly different, but the video description and the podcast description are similar. So I wanted to go there first, and then we're going to go over to the show notes that live on my website. Okay, so now we are in the back end of my YouTube studio. I have just gone into an individual video, and I want to show you what this looks like behind the scenes in case you're not creating content on YouTube, you've never seen what this looks like. But I also think it's important that you know some of the secrets I'm going to share with you here today. And that is, I don't create all of this information that you see here from scratch every time I put up a brand new video. So I hope that that just blew your mind because I don't go in and type all this stuff every single time. What I actually do is from here, where it says this video contains affiliate links. If you make a purchase, I may make a small commission at no extra cost to you. So this is my affiliate disclaimer that I have in every single YouTube video that has an affiliate link listed. Super important that you follow the FTC guidelines for affiliate marketing because you have to have this disclaimer. You also have to have it for YouTube as well. But I think it's really important that we have that. So what I will typically do is anything that is below this line right here is something that I copy and I paste and put it into every video that I create from here on out. So if I were to create a brand new video at this point and I'm working on the description, the first thing that I would do is go to the video previously and I would highlight all this information. And we're going to talk about what all this is. I would highlight all this information down to here. I'd copy it and I would paste it into my brand new video. Now, what is all of this information? Most of it is going to be affiliate links. So it's something that is mentioned in the episode. It's something that I talked about in a video, or it's just tools and processes, software, programs, books, events, different things that I have used or recommended. Typically, I won't put every single affiliate link I've ever been affiliated with in here, but I do put ones that I think, okay, I'm a content creator, I'm talking to content creators, what would they find helpful? Probably recording software and scheduling tools and project management and interviews, podcasts, like all the things that are related to content creation, I will put in here and I will leave them there. And like you can see, I have Canva, Kajabi. I have my own program listed in here. So if you have some resources that you know that you're like, well, this may not be relevant to my audience now. Like if you're just getting started and you're growing, you're like, I only have 100 subscribers. Who's going to actually, y'all, over time, I only had 100 subscribers at one point, and now like I have several thousand. So things change over time, and you have to be thinking about the future of your audience, not exactly where it is today, right now, but you have to think about your videos as other people will see these in the future, and you want to make sure everything is optimized. So what I have all my affiliate links. I have the link to our Facebook group. I have, my book, and then I have some free resources, and then I have all of my social links. Because if someone is watching me on YouTube and then they say, man, I would really like to go hang out with her. I like her personality. She's a little sassy. She's a little funny. I want to go check her out on Instagram. Then they could go find my Instagram handle, and I've put it there to where they can just click on that link and go follow me on Instagram. So I've made it really simple. Instead of just putting the handle of where they could find me, these are actually links when this video is live and not in editing mode, and they can go find me in those different places. I also put hashtags down here. You're allowed, I think, 3 hashtags that will show up on a video. And so ever since that happened, I started putting my hashtag, which is just Crystal Profit. And then I will put something that's related to the video that is up there. And then down here at the bottom, this is actually the current video. I put that link down there in the bottom of the video description. But you can see over here that you have up to 5,000 characters for your video description. So if you wanted to put a whole bunch of other information, you could absolutely do that. But again, what is your goal? What is the main thing that you want people to do once they're done watching a video? And that brings me to another way that you can really optimize your video description. And that is by having resources that you mentioned in a video. So I love to over deliver and go above and beyond. And I love to have, if I mention another video, if I talk about a podcast episode, if I mention somebody else that they should go follow, or a book recommendation, whatever it is, whatever resource, I link to it directly under the video. So it's in the video description. And I think it's important because it just makes the watcher like that much easier to get in touch with that resource that I talked about in the video. And then the same for my podcast episodes. This information that's right here is how I will promote this video on social media. I think descriptions are really important, but not for the reasons why a lot of people think they're important. Like, yes, I think it's someone typically, again, let's go back to your own consumer behavior habits. If you saw this thumbnail on YouTube, that's typically the first indication of whether someone's going to watch a video or not. It's not your description. It's not how beautifully you have written the copy that lives by your video. It's the thumbnail. So I prioritize my thumbnails over everything. Then I make sure that my title has great keywords and SEO. I'll link to some resources below this video that are about keywords and SEO. So if you want to learn more about that, or if you have questions about it, put those in the comments because I'd love to answer your questions about how I optimize my videos for SEO. But then from there, I believe it's important to work on the description and have everything. But the description is honestly the last thing that I write because that's the thing that I'm going to promote. So at this point, you can see I didn't actually write. It looks like a lot of information. Y'all, this was all copied and pasted. I copied and pasted everything from here down from the previous video. These were all the resources that I mentioned in the video, which are typically in the planning stage of when I'm creating the content. Make sure you watch this video right here where I walk through how I create and plan my content in Asana and Google Sheets, how I create my content. And then this is my description. So realistically, I just wrote this part right here in my video description. This is how I optimize my YouTube videos. Okay, now, last but not least, let's go over to my website and I'm going to show you how I optimize my show notes for my podcast, which is a step above and beyond just having really good episode descriptions. Okay, so now we are at a podcast episode that I had done. I'm going to link to it below this video, but this is really important. And I want to tell you a little bit about my website. So I have a WordPress website. This is important because I know y'all are going to ask me anyway. I have a WordPress website. This, you will realize it's familiar from what it looks like from BUZZSPROUT. So what I will do is I will import the code that is for an individual episode into my WordPress page, which is like a blog post. And I take the code from an individual episode and I import that audio file into my show notes. Why do I do this? I get questions about this a lot. I like to have the control of what it looks like on the page, and I can do that by embedding the code for each individual episode with BUZZSPROUT. So that's a little back end of how I create my show notes. I do have a video right here that walks you through how I create everything in my WordPress site, how I optimize for keywords and all those things. But today, this is more of a high level of how I create my show notes. Again, you're going to recognize this. This podcast contains affiliate links. If you click a link on this page, this is copied on every single page, so I don't have to remember to put it there. I have affiliate links in almost everything that I do. And if you hadn't noticed this, BUZZSPROUT, whenever you add one of those brand links, you will see this disclaimer for if you, like I told y'all, I put that BUZZSPROUT affiliate link in episodes. This is what it would look like in a podcast player, like on Apple Podcast or somewhere else. You will see this disclaimer. Again, very important. I can't be, I feel like I'm like so overly cautious about, like, I don't want to get a slap on the wrist from the FTC or someone saying, you don't have your affiliate links marked properly. So I always cover my bases with affiliate links. Now, let's go to optimization. So why would someone go to my website, right? They've listened to the podcast, they've gotten everything out of it. They're like, oh, this was such an amazing episode. And then they go on about their day. Well, inside those podcast episodes, I will mention, make sure you go check out the show notes at crystalprofit.com/episode 339 is where you're going to find everything we talked about here today. So this is the above and beyond. This is not just a one-time interaction. Whenever I create show notes on my website, I'm actually creating blog posts. And this is how I'm able to get organic traffic on my website because I'm concentrating on the important pieces. These are SEO optimized and these have really good titles. So if someone were searching in Google, it is likely that this post would show up in their search and they would be brought into my world and they could learn more about what I do and who I serve. And so what I talked about in the podcast episode, in my show notes, in the planning stages of creating this episode, I will make sure that I link to them in these show notes. So what I've done is I talked about a YouTube video that my good friend Melanie, shout out Mel, she was on the Social Media Examiner podcast. And this is something I talked about in this particular episode. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to link to that in the show notes. And I say that in the episode. I'm like, hey, by the way, go check out this video. It's going to be linked in the show notes. You should go check it out. I also have really clear titles on what it is that I'm talking about. We talked about Pod Inbox in this particular episode. So I linked to a YouTube video that I created about how to set up a Pod Inbox account. Don't worry, I'm going to link to all this stuff in the show notes for this episode right now. But I think it's important that you have things that are above and beyond. But I want to also show you what you can do because I know you probably have an online business, you have products you want to sell, or you have free resources that you want to generate some leads for your email list. This is what I do. Instead of having Google AdSense or other ads that are popping up in people's faces that aren't relevant to the content, I don't have any of that stuff. What I have is I have positioned my own free resources, my own products to be something that people can engage with and interact with when they're on every single post on my website. This is how I think about optimization. I have optimized the ability for people to go grab my Ultimate Podcast Launch Toolkit. It's a $37 product that I think is really helpful for someone that's getting ready to launch their podcast. Or my book, Start a Binge-Worthy Podcast. You can order it directly from here. And I have a fun little testimonial from Amy Porterfield that I put right here on the page because it's what I thought would be a great thing to highlight on my podcast show notes. Then I have, again, I've talked about it like 4 times in this video, but I have my BuzzSprout affiliate link because a lot of people that come to me are wanting to start a podcast. So I have all this information here, and then I also have links to the Facebook page, the Potty Report, which is my daily podcast. And then down here at the bottom, we have related episodes, previous episodes, and people can leave comments. I know that this sounds like a lot of information, especially for someone that's just getting started. But the reason why I wanted to talk about all these things today is because I don't want you to get years into creating content and then realize I have to go back and update hundreds of podcast episodes or YouTube videos or blog post on my website because I didn't optimize them properly to meet my goals. Now, your goals may be different from mine. My goals with my podcast episode descriptions is to write out what I'm going to use to post on social media. That's really what it's there for. And if someone's scrolling on their podcast app, I want them to be able to see, oh, okay, this is what this episode is about. I'm not there to get people to follow me on Instagram. I am there to get them to engage and listen to the full episode. And then hopefully they like what they hear, they want to come back for more, and they want to engage with me in other places. And they can seek out that information in my show notes. That is what is super important to me. I want them to first fall in love with my podcast episode, learn more about who I am, decide if they like me or not. This is a big thing too that people don't often want to say out loud. Like, is someone actually going to enjoy your content and want to connect with you? They have to make that decision. Then once they do, my hope is that they're going to go from the podcast to the show notes where I have over delivered. Did you see there were several YouTube videos? There were links to other resources and really helpful information. I want them to realize, oh, she over delivers. She goes above and beyond in her free content. Then I can't even imagine what her paid stuff is like. That's really the marketing message that I want to send. And then for my YouTube videos, I want to make sure that people have the resources that I talked about. I don't want them going on a wild goose chase trying to find something that I mentioned in a video. I want it to be right there. And then if they want to connect with me, listen to my podcast, or go to my website, they also have that information below as well. So there are so many ways that you can optimize. And again, I think keywords and SEO are something that we didn't even have time to touch on in this video. But like I said, I'm going to link to several resources below. Again, because I like to over deliver and make sure that you have the information you need to optimize your show notes. Whew, y'all. This was a big video. This was a great one though, because I get questions so often about how to make sure that you have the right information in the right spot. So I hope that this cleared up some of those questions. But if not, I invite you to put them in the comments below if you have a specific question that wasn't answered here today, or if you have a question about something that we talked about, but it wasn't really clear, put them in the comments. But that's all I have for you today. So make sure you hit the thumbs up on this video if you found it helpful. Subscribe below if you have not already. Make sure you check out these other videos right here, all about content creation and running your online business. And as always, remember, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere.